know you're wondering what's under the bucket.
I'm over here like before
But
um,
you remember that kid story that talks about, whatever you put in other people's buckets, that's what you put into? I've been carrying this bucket around for 2 weeks. I carry it on airplanes. Right into this heat favorite people are like, do you have like a bladder problem? I have a pride problem. It's way more embarrassing. But I just keep thinking, like, what am I filling my bucket with? You guys, go get one of these at Home Depot, $4, and just carry it with you everywhere you go. No, I'm kidding. Like, that's what I've literally been doing. Because I just remind myself, whenever I fill my bucket with, that's what I'll turn into. So if you fill your bucket with business deals, or anxiety about your kids, or frustration with your husband, you just end up with being this frustrated, wonky person because you just filled your bucket with it. I'm just trying to fill mine with humility. I'm just trying to fill mine with Jesus. And so there's this guy, there's that band, Phillips, Craig and Dean. Well, Randy Phillips is this pastor of this church, and he asked me like a year ago if I come speak at his church. But this rat, he didn't tell me it was Super Bowl Sunday. And I said yes, but I was like, really? So I asked him like when I got there, like, I didn't know it was Super Bowl Sunday when I said I'd come. Did you know? He's like, yes, I knew nobody would come. And so he hooked me into like missing dinner with Sweet Marie and speaking at this thing this next morning, this guy's thing. And so I did that. I jumped in the Avis car and I rushed to the airport. And I get there and this guy is so slow checking the cars in. And I'm like, my clothes are going out of style. I'm like, really? But I looked at the bucket in my passenger seat and I said, fill it with patience. Fill it with patience. And I'm looking at my watch and like my plane leaves. I'm filled with patience. And the guy opened the door. He said, how was your rental car experience? I said, it was terrific. So I'm walking towards the airport with my bucket and he stops me and he said, hey, good sermon yesterday. I'm like, so you guys, whatever it'll take to just keep you humble. And if it's carrying a stupid bucket around, just do it. Right? Just do that. It'll be a fashion statement all of a sudden. You'll see people with my over do that. I've spent my whole life trying to be right. I'm a lawyer. Even when I'm wrong, I think I'm right. And I think that Jesus wants me to be humble. We're trying to win all these arguments with your husband or kids or stuff. Arguments that happen, they're gone. But we're replaying, we're trying to win them in our mind. And it's just you're filling your bucket with all this stuff and trying not to cuss. Like, all this stuff you don't need. You just don't need it anymore. Like, can we just say we just don't need it? Can we just say it? I don't need it anymore?
I don't need it anymore.
You don't. That's the whole idea of Jesus. He says, he's going to fill you with grace and love and all this good stuff that'll actually last. When I'm having a disagreement with somebody now, I actually take off my shoes. Isn't that crazy? You just lose them. You'll have a different conversation with people. You will, and it's not because you're stinking them out. It's because you're humble. Oh my gosh. So, I'm no theologian, like folk theologian at best, but I've learned this, is the first 5 verses of any book in the Bible are always like, hi, how are you? It's always verse 6 where it always gets good. So check this out, Galatians chapter 1, verse 6. And it says this, I'm astonished that you so quickly deserted the one who called you to live in grace. And you came up with a new gospel. One that isn't a gospel at all. Live in grace. 2 John. If I was going to write a book in the Bible and wanted credit for a whole book, I'd write 2 John. It's like 13 sentences long. You'd think a lousy poem. 2 John chapter 1, verse 6. And this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands. And this is his command, that we walk in love. So there it is. Live in grace, walk in love. Say it with me.
Live in grace, walk in
Say it
love.
one more time like you mean it.
Live in grace, walk in love.
Guys, rumble that when you're walking down the road. Like just live in grace, walk in love. Somebody ticks you off. Live in grace,
Walk in love.
Whoever your enemy is. Matthew 5, love your enemies so you can be perfect. Like your Father in heaven is perfect. Live in grace. Walk in love. Just say it so often. People think you got dementia. It's okay. Just do that. Right? And let everybody know they're welcome. Nobody's invited to my house anymore. Everybody's welcome. Right? Big difference. Have you ever been invited somewhere you weren't really welcome? You're like, we're so glad you're here. When I meet people, I just say, you're welcome here. And they just think I'm saying, hi, how are you? I'm not. I'm reminding myself, everybody's welcome. Gay, straight, Buddhist, Baptist, everybody, right to the feet of Jesus. We don't need bouncers in our churches anymore. We just, everybody's in. But right to the feet of Jesus. Right? It's his house. I'm usually in bed by like 9 at night or something, but now what they do is they'll have a rock and roll concert and then they'll have somebody talk afterwards. I wish they had somebody talk before and then the rock and roll. But I get to this motel in like Oklahoma. It's like 1 in the morning and it just worked. And so I get my key from the guy at the front desk and I go to my room and I open the door, throw my stuff on the bed, turn on the light. You guys, there's a woman in the room! She started screaming! She's like, this is my room! And so I started screaming, this is my room! And I grabbed my backpack and ran. I felt like Joseph. And the guy at the front and like, buddy, I mean, the concept isn't that tough. One person per room. Seven that has some guardrails. But like, what if we just say, like, we keep sharing the room with everybody, all these roommates that Jesus doesn't want you to have. He wants the whole room. He wants the whole room in your life. He wants you to live in grace and walk in love and stop being right, be humble. And if you have to take off your shoes to get there or carry a bucket around, I don't even have a bucket list. I mean, I want to do everything. I put in the bucket the 3 things I don't want to do. I get bit in the face by a snake. And I'm going to cover on that one. Is it venomous? Live in grace. Walk in love. And if we're doing that, and the way that Jesus was talking about, it'll change a whole bunch in our life. Have you guys been to SeaWorld before? Isn't that place awesome? You know, I brought that little kid after his operation. Like, I took him to see, because he's never seen anything bigger than a Nile perch, and they have to shampoo the barking whale or whatever it is. And so, I got there, I'm like a tight one, I get to the front, you know, the pay window, it's $85 American to get in. I'm like, that's like $20 a foot for him. So I'm like, there must be another way. And he said there's this thing, ask for a shopper's pass. I felt like I was doing a drug deal. I want a shopper's pass. And here's what you get. 1 hour. You get into SeaWorld for 1 hour. They make it so you go buy rubber tuna or something in one of those stores again. But you can see all of SeaWorld in an hour. But you gotta be running. So I'm like, you see the penguins? It was like a moving boat. We were running and we saw all the sharks and we were like, lawyers! And then... And we ended up in Shamrock Stadium, right? 5,000 seats. And the last 8 rows are blue. What's that called? Splash Zone! That's right. So if you're a kid and you just come 18,000 miles and had that operation, where do you sit? Splash Zone! And so the whale went up and he came down and just shook his out. Right? And I'm like, look at him, I'm like, come on, kid! And I stopped and I looked behind me at all these wet tennis shoe marks. And I thought, that's us. Bingo. We leak Jesus. You don't do it on Wednesday nights. I don't have to send mocks in here after you guys leave. Just leak Jesus. Just do it. Don't make it contrived. Just talk about stuff you love. I love cupcakes. I talk about them all the time. I love Jesus. I talk about cupcakes and Jesus. Just talk about stuff you love. influence your family? Talk about stuff you love. Love stuff that lasts. I used to spend my whole life working, trying to find things that worked. And I've had 100 great ideas that have worked. And I've had 20 stupid ideas that have worked. I'm not going for what works anymore. I'm going for what lasts. How about you? What can you go for? Just don't have to do that anymore. And be curious about everything. As followers of Christ, we should be the most curious people in the world. Have you guys had Dippin' Dots before? Those things, I don't know if the heaven streets are paved in gold. I hope they're coated in Dippin' Dots. I love that stuff, but I wanted to meet the guy who invented it. Because I'm like, you invented, there's no way you and I are on Earth and not know each other. So I'm my mad scientist guy, I'm sure he just dropped a beaker and, and his ice cream, like Dippin' Dots. So just, what's the next move? What's your next move? Want to go do stuff that lasts? Figure out your next move. I'm not a chess player. I always just take the smallest piece on the board and move it 1 square forward. I don't have to worry about all these rules, like this one goes diagonal, and then like the knight, but the knight's the guy on the horse. So you don't have to worry about all that stuff. Just take your smallest piece and move it 1 square forward. So my next move to meet the Dippin' Dots guys isn't go to the mall and get like $5 of Dippin' Dots and pound them. I call them up. Isn't that great? I'm like, I'm a Dippin' Dots guy. So we're going to meet. How fun is that? We're going to have the best time. He told me he got shot out of a tree with a Roman candle. I'm like, we are going to be friends. Oh, man. You want to climb that tree again? I'll shoot you out. Be the most curious things. Learn how to play the bassoon. Do things, and your family will think you're nuts. Living a life, the kind of love that Jesus talked about, means living in a way that means you're constantly misunderstood. Just be constantly misunderstood. It's okay. You're not angry. Well, that's you. Like, that's me. Be you. In heaven's going, that's my girl. Go do that a bunch. And move to the blue seats often. And then if you're wondering about how to make Dippin' Dots, you just get liquid nitrogen. I'm not kidding. You can get it here in Phoenix. It's like you're buying plutonium. And then you drizzle the ice cream in, or go to North Dakota in like February. Just drizzle it out the window. 50 degrees below zero, you got Dippin' Dots. Be the most curious people. Go back and blow your family's minds. You want to lead them? God gave you influence, not so you could lead people, it was so you could love people. Use your influence. You spot on. You guys are calling the shots, and let whimsy just take you to beautiful places. Like the Chief Justice of Uganda's Supreme Court landed at LAX. And I picked him up, and he said, can I see your office? I said, well, terrific. And so I put him in the car, and we drove past Wilshire Boulevard, all these like high-rises. We kept driving, and we pulled into Disneyland's parking lot. He was like, you have an office here? I'm like, I have a pirate ship here. I made a Mickey Mouse here. He said the chief, right? Can you picture that? Like, that's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. We could have sat in a boardroom with suits on and like flip-on tie. We could have talked about stuff, but we had a different conversation on Tom Sawyer Island. We talked about kids and whimsy, and we talked about his grandkids. If you go in the Chief Justice's office in Kampala, you're going to see behind his desk a picture of his wife and his grandkids. And right next to that, a pair of Mickey Mouse ears. Do that, you know it works. Make everything mean something. Make everything mean something. We have people, good guys and bad guys, over to our house up in Canada. People who are not welcome in the United States, we meet them in Canada. I've got this awesome letterhead. It's got shields and spears. It says embassy and Uganda. So I get these guys visas, and they're creepy guys. But with me, I'm trying to love my enemies. I don't hate them, I just don't get them. You've got people you don't get either. What if you do that? It's not a page out of Fear Factor. Just find people you don't get, and then love them. But we've got to start with like figuring out the people that are already in our life. What if we do that? Remember the verse, like, before you come to a house of worship, You know, if you realize your brother or sister has something against you, go square up with them. Then come back and worship. We have these churches all over the country. They have these stupid signs to say, turn off your cell phones. You walk into a house of God, you turn yours on. And you say, who is it that's got something against me? And send them a text message. Want to know the short version? Sorry. The long version? Really sorry. You guys just do that stuff and be humble. Don't say sorry you stink. Just say sorry. Somebody here told me about a text message they sent this morning to somebody in the middle of the worst thing you can imagine. In the guts and grit and love and humility of this woman to send that message. It must have felt like her hand weighed 400 pounds. And she sent it. And she got a message back from her husband. What if you do that? Before you leave, say, could you just sorry. And you might get a question, you might get 5 question marks back. I love being wonderfully ambiguous. Just sorry. The beautiful part, you learn it as you come. You just picked up your bucket. You just picked up your bucket one more time, and your family will know that and they'll love that about you, that you're not the one that's just trying to be right all the time. We have this tradition where we have people that come up, that people who are mad at each other from different countries. Remember, like the Russia's rolling tanks against Ukraine, but before that they were running against breakaway Georgia. And we brought those 2 people up to the lodges to just spend time together. And then before they leave, we have everybody who breaks bread at our table climb underneath and sign it. They just sign the table. Isn't that great? Like we have, people, the Chief Justice, justices on the Supreme Court can't be in the same room with some of these guys. So we just bring them at different times. But they all sign the table. You look underneath the table, there's hundreds of signatures of people. What if you do that? Acts 2 and 4. The disciples broke bread together, and they had everything in common. I say to these guys from Beirut and all over, like, you got nothing in common. What if we make this table what you have in common? And then when things flare up, I just take a picture of their names and just say, I know we were just thinking about how we broke bread here together. No teachable moment. Just say the name. Mary. Say that. Oh, filled with grace, filled with purpose, filled with shelf life. And if we do that stuff, we get everything right. And we do that with our kids. Do that with your kids. Tell them who they're turning into. Here's you've gone to this landlocked country, right? And so I thought, let's start the Gulu surf team. Do you have a little video? I love this.
Surf. Has anyone seen a wave? So you see them aboard, you go into the water, and you stay on the water like that. You can actually float on the water like Jesus, right? The wave is going, all the water is completely over him. Has anybody ever surfed before? No? Does anybody want to learn? Yeah? Alright. We got reels. From the early morning to the middle of the night.
Ton of insurance and do that in the park. But it's fun, whimsical ways. If you go home and say, we're tarp surfing today, family, they'll think you've lost your mind. Isn't that beautiful? Just lead a wonderfully ambiguous life. And they'll say, oh my gosh, they're going to see Christ in you. They just will. You know that's what's going to happen, right? This community in Alabama called me up and said, will you come and speak at this thing? We're having a crock drop. I'm like, a crock chop? I am so there. And so I get there and I walk in this big, like warehouse, and I think these alligators are gonna fall like balloons from the ceiling. And I got it wrong, and it's a crop drop. I'm like, shoot! And it was beautiful. 20 of the churches in this community, they all got together, they gleaned the fields. They got all those vegetables that the machines didn't get, and they were just in there packing and bagging vegetables for people who need it. People ask me all the time, like, what church do you go to? And I would say, our church. Like, I'm calling dibs on all of them. I'm calling dibs on this one. No, really. Where I go here. It's our church. There's some churches I don't always get. They're like, that's my church too. And the one down the way that's kind of wonky, that's my church too. Make all of them our church. That's how we roll. We're our church. It's one church. And if everybody's welcome, they don't have to worry about being invited anymore. Isn't that great? You don't have to invite people to church. Welcome them to church. It's great. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome home. Wouldn't that be great? You guys will change people's minds. And then go find people you don't understand. The mosque in San Diego, we just celebrated the tragedy of 9/11 and our thoughts, the people that perished that day. The imam for this mosque where 2 of the pilots are from is in San Diego. And I called him up a couple of years ago. I said, there's no way we should live in the same community and not know each other. I mean, we should be friends. I said, what was the day you're most frightened? What's the time? And he said, easy, 9/11, right? Because the FBI's here, the CIA, they want to know if I know these guys, and I don't know them. But the next night, or that evening, we see on the news lynchings and all this violence against Muslims everywhere. We get back to the mosque early the next morning, and we're praying, and all of these cars pull into our parking lot, 100, 200, 300 cars. All these people pile up. We don't know any of them, and we're just sure they're there to kill us. And these people surround the mosque. And he said, he was telling me, he was crying as he's telling me this. He said, we were so frightened. And then they all held hands, and they started singing praise songs about Jesus. And people that came by that were angry at them, he said, these are our friends, and you ain't touching them. That's our church. We surround people, even people we don't understand, because we're trying to be perfect, like our Father in heaven is. And you gotta stop being right if you're gonna be perfect. And so some of these arguments with your husbands or kids, like, let me just say sorry. Say it's all good. Like, let's just be the next version of us. And then started asking, and people ask me all the time, like, how's that working for you? What if we ask a different question? How's your life working for everybody around you? That's the question. Because if your life ain't working for the people around you, I got a memo for you. It ain't working for you. I've got this friend. You got toilet paper. You guys toilet paper in somebody's house? You raise them up. Come on. Okay. Now we're getting real with each other. So this guy got royally toilet paper. I pull up to his house, and it's on this, he's getting it on his lawn in the bushes. But he must have had some Heisman quarterback holding over this pine tree of his. Because he had these big streamers, and I was wondering how he's going to get it out of the tree. And so this genius, he walks inside, he comes out with a book of matches. And he lights it up like in slow motion. I'm like, no! It's like he lit a fuse, it goes up, the tree catches on fire. And one of the limbs falls on his neighbor's garage that's like 3 feet deep in his stupid pine needles. And he burns down the garage. I'm like, buddy, your life is not working for people around you. So how's your life working? Is there ashes? Is there a bunch of debris? The message of Christ is like, do-over. I give myself 2 epic fails every year. I literally carry these things around with me. These tickets. I give myself 2 epic fails every year. Not lose. Epic fail. Right? And so when I'm here, actually, come on up here. I'm going to give you 4. Just in case. Well, what if you do that to me? Give yourself a couple. Are you going to mess up? Of course you are. You're you. But that's this idea of grace. She goes, One of the things we started doing many years ago is going into brothels in India and finding these little girls that have been sold into sexual prostitution. Like that, there's a little girl, and her name is Karishma, and we found her in one of these brothels. And her mother had been a prostitute there, had died of AIDS, and the next day they took Karishma, and she was 11 years old. This is Karishma.
Her mother, a prostitute, died 4 years ago from AIDS. The brothel keeper, a woman in her 40s, now uses Karishma as a replacement source of income. Like other young girls her age, Karishma should be outside playing with her friends. Instead, she will remain ensnared in a cycle of violation unless she is rescued, or until she too dies from disease or abuse.
Found this girl, and that isn't just a girl. All of a sudden it becomes your daughter and my daughter, because Karishma was my daughter's age at the time. In fact, this has got to stop. And so we started going into more brothels. We have cameras that look like buttons, and we have recording decks. In fact, we just asked for 12-year-olds. And they bring these kids out, and then we videotape them, we bring it to the police and say, if you don't do an intervention, we'll call in the State Department, who's got your foreign aid check. And so we went into this adjoining brothel area. We found 13 little girls who had been in these houses for years. We did this raid and got all these kids out. They went in front of the judge, and the judge released one of the girls to her parents. What's the problem with that? Yeah, her parents sold her in. So we went 100 miles to where her village is and to find this little girl. When I got out of the car, this guy came at me with a knife. And I'm like, yikes. And they had just resold her into the same brothel for $40. So this time we were charging back in. We had an SUV, and because we'd been involved in the first one, we sent Indian investigators in this time. Somebody spotted one of them and figured out they were with us. And so they called on the cell phone and he said, Mom, there's a mob, and come rescue me. They don't have knives there, they throw chili pepper in your eyes, and it really hurts. And so we charge in there with this SUV, and like 300 bad guys show up because 13 brothel owners had been arrested the day before. And we're like not having a Bible study. Everybody's slugging everybody. I'm just trying to get these guys in the car. And we get into the car, and the driver of the car split. And he took the keys. And we're in this about 10 hours from Mumbai. We get stoned. Not like high school version, like we. And on the way to the hospital, before they took us to jail, I took one of my tickets out and it went epic, fake. I just had so many alternate endings to that. I really got worried about all this happening. That hurts the most, you know, when you scare other people. So, Congress finds out about a brothel area, and the funding for that came from USAID, and Bush 2 signs the Full Transparency Act. The things that start out as feeling like our biggest failure sometimes end up being Jesus' biggest success, because it's not about us anymore, right? And if we cannot make it about us, it becomes about Jesus. After we started in Uganda, we got most of the school built, and so I was thinking, what's another country in the world that's like nobody wants to go to? So we started a school in Somalia. And Mogadishu, there's no government, there's no police, it is just a scary place. There's 10 million people, and they've all got guns. And there's nobody that looks like me there. And so I flew in, and I hired 4 guys with machine guns to like meet me at the airport. And they show up in this black Suburban with tinted windows. Like they're in a pickup truck, and I'm like, you do not want to be the dude in a black Suburban with the tinted windows. Because like El Shabaab aims for that guy. You want to be the guy in a Prius behind the guy. So we're driving through these dirt roads in Mogadishu, and it's like a level of Call of Duty. I'm like, I've been here before. Hang up. And this car cuts between us and the guys guarding us, And the driver said, "This is really bad." And there's two things you do not want to hear in Somalia. This is really bad, or I'm the captain now, right? And so, the guys that are protected, my guys, these guys, in this pickup truck, they start shooting. And I said, "Yikes!" I was going to cuss, but I thought it'd be the last thing I'd say. And I know it doesn't sound big and deep and theological, but you guys, it's big, it's deep, and it's theological. Because God spends so much time talking about guys like me, lawyers, people who are comfortable, maybe some of you. And the Holy Spirit, and that's so over my pay grade, but the Holy Spirit says a comforter. And people who are comfortable, like they don't need Jesus. They can be polite to him, but people who are comfortable don't need Jesus. And so I'm learning how to live right on the edge of yikes. It looks so tough because I want to need Christ. And some of you in this room are living on the edge of yikes. In your relationships, in your marriages, with your kids, with your jobs. You're going like, yikes. And if you're not living on the edge of yikes, you go find somebody who is. And climb out on the edge of yikes with them. And go double yikes. Right? That's where God wants you. On the edge of yikes. In your marriages. And like, say, "Oh, honey, we could talk about this. It's really okay." And you're going, yikes. And all of heaven is going, "That's my girl. Do that." And then, men, we're gonna go caught up in your love for Christ, and you're just gonna suck us along in this vortex that you create. They won't teach these little girls how to read or write, and you know why? Because they're girls. That's baloney. And so we started with 100 girls, and we've got guys guarding them. Let me introduce you to just 4 of them. These are them. They're saying yikes too. And you guys, what if you just think of something here? Start with your family and then expand out to your neighbor and then expand out to your block. Wherever it is, whatever you're good at, whatever will last. Do that. And so I was on the way to Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland. I'm actually on the raft and I get a call from this guy. He said, "This is 7-Up." And I'm like, I'm talking to a beverage. And he said, I've heard what you're doing in Mogadishu. We'll pay for all of it. I'm like, that's like 2 Lexuses worth. And like, yikes. What if you start this chain reaction, not knowing where it's going to lead, but trusting it'll lead right to the feet of Jesus? It's crazy. I met a little girl, and her name is Scovia, in Uganda, and she was 12 years old. She was asked by one of the people to bring the baby to its mother across the village. And so she brought the baby and dropped it off. And the baby starts screaming as she's leaving. She realizes, I just brought the child to a witch doctor for a child sacrifice. And so she ran back in and grabbed the child and ran. And she got caught and they threw her in this prison. This is Scovia. She'd been sitting in that prison for 3 years without ever stepping foot in court. And I said, what jail is the witch doctor in? They said, well, they're not in jail. You know why? They're afraid of these guys. And if there's a message in the Bible throughout it, be not afraid. Right? And so we tried Scovia's case and we dropped her off at home and it just changed everything for her. Like this idea of returning a daughter to her mother to say, here's your daughter back. But we started in against these wishes. Now the things that you and I do, we need to not make a big deal about it. Just go do awesome stuff. I'm a lawyer. I memorize everything. I know everybody who ever hosted me on a business deal or broke my heart. You remember every guy that broke your heart. You just remember somebody that double-crossed you. And I'm trying not to remember that stuff, but I do. I feel like Nixon. And I also remember every swell thing I've done for anybody. The little ladies I walked across. I'm not trying to memorize, but I just do. And like God said, like, you don't need to. If you're going to turn into love, you just stop memorizing stuff. Do you guys have Chuck E. Cheese here in Phoenix?
Mm-hmm.
Have you tasted that pizza? It's like dog food. That's a rat. I'm just saying. I have no hearing in my left ear because I spent years with my kids there. And they still have skee ball there.
Yeah.
And you must dip that thing in a drunk because you just want to do it. And so I was playing skee ball and collecting these tickets that come out for years. I went to the pay window. I had 1,000 tickets. I thought I was going to get a Porsche. They gave me a pencil. I'm like, tickets! And they took me an out of a racer. They're like, that's 500 more. I'm like, curse you, Chuck E. Cheese. Every time we keep track of the good we're doing, we just get 3 more tickets. And you don't need to make a hoodie every time you do something great. Right? Like, Jesus doesn't need it, and he actually says, like, you got your reward. And you get these little one-handed claps and stuff like, oh, I want heaven. It's going to be such a better deal to save it up. And let heaven just applaud you and spend eternity talking to all the people to say, here's all the good you did. Here's how it ricocheted off of me. With your whimsy, your magic, your leadership in your families. This is what happened because I saw your family. I saw you carrying around that bucket. It made me want to do the same thing. There's these 2 guys walking down the road. And they hear from behind this wall, these guys are going, 13, 13, 13. They're like, what's going on? They try to get up in a tree, but they can't see over the wall. They're like on each other's shoulders. 13, that's killing them. And they see a hole in the wall. The guy looks through, he gets poked behind the stick. He's like, oh! And from behind the wall, 14.
14.
Stop counting! Stop counting! You want to point people towards Jesus? Stop counting. I mean, I mow the lawn. I want to make a t-shirt that says, Bob mows the lawn. And on the back it says, yet again. Right? Don't make a big deal about it. Right? Oh, guys. And I apologize. You're my family. Right? And I had some stupid website saying, like, we're serving the poorest of the poor. Like, I'm going to step over poor people. Like, get out of here, you poser. I'm the poorest. You know what I did? I made it about me. Yet again. And it'll never be about Jesus if we keep making it about us. Just make it about Jesus. Like, don't make it about you. And not with false humility, but you're just so filled to the brim with that. You just go like, no, I just want to. So you don't have to call it ministry anymore. Just call it Tuesday. Right? It doesn't have to be a missions trip. Just go be helpful. I think a missionary, I think of a Spaniard with the flu and everybody dies. What if you just go do epic stuff? I'm breathing for you. I'm breathing for you. This was the 1-year anniversary of the worst day of your life. Look how far you've come. Oh, man. We do that stuff, it just changes everything. We started doing stings in Uganda. Because I'm a consul general, I send out word on the bush radio. The consul general is coming, and I command every witch doctor in northern Uganda to meet me at the king's house. And you guys, they come, and they're creepy dudes, like by the hundreds. We do stings beforehand, and I act like I'm a wealthy businessman in Kampala, flanked with a bunch of Ugandans who work for me. And I say I've got a building that needs strong powers, and the belief, and it's no, it's gross, is that if there's a child in the foundation of your building, that these great things happen. And so we have watches that are cameras and pins, and I ask them, what would it take for you to sell me a child for a sacrifice? $30. And I've never gone to a witch doctor and not have an offer. Then I take the video back to 200 witch doctors, all in the king's side, and I say, you see this guy? He's dead. You have a picture of one of these witch doctors? You even talk about touching a kid, you're dead too. And I literally try to scare the heck out of them. And then I wash their feet, which scares the heck out of me because I am not a toe guy. But there's something beautiful that happens. Like one of us gets humble and it's needy. And we put their big guy away on death row. And so they have now a new big head witch doctor. And I said, what do you need? And he said, we're feared. You know, nobody likes us. They think we have all the power, so they keep us around, but you know, nobody really wants us around. I'm like, buddy, I'm a lawyer. I know exactly how you feel. And he said, well, we don't know how to read or write. So don't freak out, but I started a witch doctor school. And I got 200 witch doctors in witch doctor school. We just teach them how to read and write. And you know the only books we have in witch doctor school? The Bible. And a buddy wrote a book called Love Does. So, we had graduation day. After we got up at Kilimanjaro, we graduated our first batch of witch doctors. Here's graduation day. Up in Gulu. Crazy! And these witch doctors showed there's no public display of affection in Uganda. Like, you don't do that out. But I grabbed each one by the face. And I gave him a kiss on the forehead. I'm like, ooh, we need hand sanitizer. I'm going to be every witch doctor's first kiss. And so I gave him a kiss. And then I said, just loud enough for them to hear, I said, don't make me kill you. Sweet dreams of one another. And it's crazy, you guys, what happens when it just starts spreading like that. I get all these calls. I usually get my first call at like 5 in the morning. And it's always some, you know, guy in Atlanta that's on his way to work. And it's 8 for him, but it's 5 in San Diego. And Maria thinks she's married to an adolescent. I'm like, hello? Talk to me. I got my last call at midnight from 2 witch doctors from witch doctor school. And they said, a little boy's been abducted. He's 6. He's been taken into the bush for a sacrifice, but we know where he is. Should we go get him? And I'm standing up on the bed of my box and I'm like, get the kid! And 4 hours later, I get a text message from these 2 bad guys in witch doctor school. They said, we've rescued the child. He's with his mother. And the last 2 words of the text message, love does. Are the ones that see people, even witch doctors, even creepy people, for who they're turning into. And you guys have changed everything, mostly for you. As soon as 7-Up said they would pay for all the stuff going on in Somalia, we moved our money 6 months ago to Iraq. We started a school. This is last week's first day of school, 2 hours outside of Iraq. Kids scared to death. And so tomorrow morning, we aren't doing that on social media, so we'll keep that just a family discussion, but I'm flying to Iraq to go surprise them. And that will be fun. I know what's going to happen. And get this, sweet Maria, who doesn't even go to Taco Bell with me, she said yesterday, she said, I want to come. So she's coming too. Don't buy a ticket all the way to Iraq and back on 1 day's notice. I need a paper route. I'll be making payments on that for a year. But I know what's going to happen. We're going to walk in, and they're going to go, yikes! And all the way there, we're going to be going, yikes! We're in the ends of yikes. We're in the middle of yikes. And then they'll say, Doc, what if we're the ones that just like, we're just Emmanuel, God with us. Just go be with everybody. Everybody. And then let God do his thing. And I know the way that it'll work out terrific. We don't need Bible studies. You are the Bible study. Your life is not the, we don't need 20,000 feet of information. We just need you to go be you. Right? All these, you guys know, Maria has never raised her voice or said a crossword to me in 28 years, 1 month, and 1 day. And you can tell it's a target-rich environment, right? Never a crossword to me. And the only wrong thing she did is this. I sent her to the store to go get us a family dog. And I'm like, you know, I gotta beaver seat. I want a guide dog like a T-Rex or something. And she came home with a tiny teacup poodle. And it's got clothes. I'm like, a monkey in Pirates of the Caribbean. It just won't die. But its whole world is this blue ball. You got a dog like that? Wherever the ball is, I keep throwing it in the fireplace. I'm like, fetch! What if we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus? Somebody's going to say, what do you think about that? I don't know. Jesus. What do you think about gay people? I don't know. Jesus. What do you think about straight people? I don't know. Jesus. Just keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Find the people who've wronged you. Send them a message. Today, before you go, just say sorry. Be brave. Be courageous. Live in grace. Walk in love. Be humble. Don't be right. Get some tickets. I'll leave some out here for you. Right? Just be that. That's what heaven, I just know. Jesus didn't tell me to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. He wants you to be awesome. He just wants you to be you. The best, humblest version of you. And you guys know we had that parade at our block, and little Charlie ended up being the Grand Marshal. We hooked 1,000 balloons up to him. Do you have that picture of Charlie left out?